talking about strength training, particularly when it comes to women and all the questions that girls basically have regarding weight training. So for those of you that don't know, I am a personal trainer. I work out of Anytime Fitness at Miranda, and I have to say the number one thing that the girls that I train and that are in a gym and that we get questions on are all based around whether or not girls are going to get bulky weight training. So there are so many benefits when it comes to weight training. Literally, I could talk forever about the benefits of weight training, and I have to be honest, I feel like weight training is what changed my body. I was one of those girls that did endless amounts of cardio. Obviously, I came from, well, for those of you that know me, know that I came from a background of dancing and a lot of high intensity sports. But for those of you that don't know, I was a dancer prior to getting into gym training. I also played tennis. I've done OzTag, I surf. I do so many different, or did so many different types of cardio-based exercises, that when I quit dancing, that's when I really got in to the gym. And it was a few years after that that I started to get into strength training. And I can truly say strength training is what I feel changed my body the most and got the best results out of anything that I have personally tried. And as I was saying, there's so many benefits to strength training, like increasing your resting metabolic rate, improving your bone density, which as a female is super important because as we age, obviously our bone density starts to, or can drop, and women are more prone to osteoporosis, which is a very real thing. So super important to keep your resistance training up. It decreases your risk of disease. It reduces cortisol levels. It improves your self-esteem and your confidence. I see this every day with my girls that I train. And it makes you have such a more beautiful, structured shape. It improves your strength, which is awesome. And it also actually improves your posture. So, you know, you can't you can't do weights without executing the movement correctly to get the best results. So as part of that, it helps to improve your posture and making sure that, you know, structurally you're nice and aligned. Also, if you're someone who really enjoys cardio-based exercises such as running, strength training will actually assist you in this as well, which is unreal. So there are just so many things, but one of the other things that I really noticed, and I know that a lot of my clients notice as well, is the cellulite prone areas. It helps to reduce the appearance of dimply skin more than anything else that I know of. So I don't see the downside of strength training at all. As I said, so many benefits to strength training. I can't express that enough. So a lot of the girls' main concern when I tell them that we're going to be entering into a strength training program is the fear of becoming big and bulky and looking like the Hulk. Now look, I totally understand this because I was one of those girls that thought that if you touch any weights that you were going to get big and bulky, and that's not generally what most girls desire to look like. How wrong I was. And I get it, because a lot of people see the end result, or they see, you know, other people in the gym lifting heavy weights, or they associate, you know, the guys that look big and bulky, the lifting weights, and associate that to how they're going to look once entering into a strength training program. Now, the issue with that is they only see one aspect of that. They only see that end result, but they don't see all the other factors that come into it. People just assume that weights are going to make them bulky and base their thoughts around that. There are so many factors that come into play in regards to a result, and nutrition is such a big part of that. So quite often what I find, and what my personal experience has been as well, is, you know, it all comes down to your body fat percentage. So if you're eating in a calorie surplus and you're putting on body fat, of course you're going to look thicker and bigger and bulkier because you're hiding all that muscle that's underneath. So girls, please don't be scared of strength training. There are so many different aspects, as I said, that go into it. You're not going to get big and bulky from picking up a weight. You think about it. So, you know, if you accidentally drive a car, or if you drive a car, you're not going to accidentally become an F1 race car driver. And the other thing I like to think about as well is, you know, if it was that easy to bulk up and put on muscle, there wouldn't be a place for, like, not that there wouldn't be a place, but there's a reason why bodybuilders use steroids. They are in the gym day in, day out, training their butts off, eating, and they still have to use steroids in some cases in order to achieve a certain result. So think about that. If building muscle was that easy, they wouldn't be using them. So please do not be scared when it comes to lifting weights. It's going to do you more good than any harm or any bad side effects that come of it, trust me. And the more lean muscle we create, the better. So as we get older, our bone density starts to decrease. So it's super important, particularly for females, to continue into a strength training program or include strength training as part of their training regime. Another thing that's really beneficial is strength training, and it helps to balance out hormones. So that doesn't matter whether you are a girl who's in your 20s or 30s and you suffer from things like polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis, or any other hormone-based issue. It's really helpful for balancing out hormones. Additionally, it's also really beneficial for women who are entering into menopause. Once you are, of a certain age, you start to drop your muscle mass as well, which is really important to maintain, as well as your bone density, in order to prevent injuries. And that's the one thing that they've shown that helps women in menopause in regards to their body composition is the strength training, as opposed to copious amounts of cardio. So something to remember there, regardless of whether you're a young girl or you're entering into that next phase of your life, weight training is still very much relevant to all ages. Another thing that I want to talk about as well is, a lot of girls come into me and say they want to get toned. The thing is, you can't actually tone a muscle as such. So genetically speaking, you can't change the actual shape of a muscle. The shape of your muscle is what it is. You can't change the shape of it. The only thing that you can do is make it bigger or smaller. Now, all we want to be doing is to actually grow that muscle, but in order to get that lean look, we need to drop our body fat percentage. And that's when you can start to see the shape. So I think that's where most girls get their confusion from, is when they've seen other girls that do strength training and they do bulk up, but they don't manage the nutrition aspect of things. So at the end of the day, if you're in a calorie surplus, yes, you are going to be putting on body fat. So if you're in a slight calorie deficit, then of course you're going to be losing body fat steadily. And this is a whole nother subject altogether, but at the end of the day, your nutrition is your main priority when it comes to fat loss. So another thing that's really important to consider is a girl's lean look is not going to be achieved just by cardio. You won't be as toned. So what I say to my girls is, where we live near the beach. There's this beautiful esplanade that you can walk along. Now, for any of my clients watching this video and you're still concerned about weight training, I want you to go and walk along that esplanade. Go and look, and you will notice by seeing the girls' butts in their tights who does weight training and who doesn't. You can tell very quickly the jiggly butts from the firm butts. So, yes, girls that do cardio might be skinny, but they're not going to have much muscle, which, as you would have just learned, creates all sorts of problems later on in life. But that's where the term skinny fat comes from, and that's not to say that that's a bad look or anything like that, but if you want that toned and lean look, then I highly recommend you include strength training as part of your program. We want to keep everything tight. So yes, you may want to drop body fat percentage, but you don't want anything jiggling around anywhere either. You want a nice firm body is what I would be assuming based on my clients. So at the end of the day, strength training 100% should be included in some form of your training regime. I'm not saying to go and give up any other types of training. If you enjoy other types of training, whether it's boxing, running, surfing, dancing, tennis, OzTag, whatever that may be, don't quit it. Like, if you enjoy it, continue with it. What I'm saying is that strength training does need to be included in some way, shape or form into your training regime for the best results. So you may know that pretty much any top athlete in the world does some form of strength training, regardless of what sport it is that they actually do. Your body doesn't actually know whether it's gone for a run, if it's gone boxing. At the end of the day, your body is burning energy, and that is all it basically knows. So you don't have to do endless amounts of cardio in order to get that lean physique, especially if you don't enjoy it, which I know that for some people, cardio is their worst nightmare. However, as I said, cardio alone isn't going to give you those fat loss results. Weights alone won't give you those fat loss results. It all works together hand in hand, and at the end of the day, nutrition is the biggest aspect of a fat loss result. It's consistency, and it's looking at the bigger picture. It's not just, one little element that's going to give you that magic result overnight. There is no quick fix. At the end of the day, it all comes down to hard work, dedication, consistency, and being in a calorie deficit. So if you push yourself with weights, your heart rate will go up, as I'm sure many of you have learned when you have been doing weight training. And yes, the heavier weights you do and the harder that you push yourself, the more you're going to sweat, similar to doing cardio training, which I know is a big question that some people have when they first start out because they don't feel like they're as sweaty or whatnot. Trust me, it will come. The other beautiful thing about weight training is that once you leave the gym, your body isn't done. So your body continues to expend that energy for up to 24 to 48 hours once you have finished training and left the gym. Your body is basically still burning calories in order to recover from your strength training session when you're in the gym. Unfortunately, with cardio, that's not the case. The calories that you burn in that session are the calories you're going to burn. There is no after effect. So one question, actually, I got a lot of questions. So to put these into context, last weekend I sent out a text to all my clients asking what is their main concern or what are their questions they have based around strength training, because I know a lot of them do have different questions, and a lot of the girls think they're going to get bulky and whatnot. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do this video. So I sent them all a text asking them to send me what their questions were, and here we are. So the first question I got asked, and probably the number one question across the board, is what is better for losing weight in regards to all different types of training, particularly with strength training. So in my personal opinion, I would say more strength training than cardio. So the way I set up most of my clients is resistance or strength training first, and then of course I make sure that their nutrition is in check, because that is the most important, and that is what is at the end of the day going to get you a fat loss result. I then use cardio as a tool or as a card. So cardio for me is something that we can manipulate and we can adjust accordingly. So I don't like to go all out with cardio with my clients from the get-go. I like to play around with it, and I feel like if you play all your cards at once, you have nowhere to move. So cardio is just, an added benefit, an added extra that we can kind of manipulate and change according to where their body's at, how their body's responding, and what their goals are at that point in time. The more muscle mass you have, the easier it is to maintain a lean physique. So basically the higher our resting metabolic rate, the more calories we consume or can consume without putting on weight. And the way to get a higher resting metabolic rate is through strength training and increasing that lean muscle mass. So it's all a circle that, you know, is related to each other. The next exercise, the next question I should say that I got asked is the best exercise to lose weight in regards to strength training. I would say your main priority should be based around big compound lifts. Now, what I mean by compound lifts is these are the lifts where you're going to be using the most amount of muscle groups in one go. So these are what I considered your big lifts. So things like squats, deadlifts, lunges, weighted hip raises. These are going to burn the most amount of energy when it comes to your strength training, as they are the bigger muscle groups. The bigger the muscle groups, of course, the more energy that you're going to expend when you're training. And then, you know, everything else like your leg extensions, your hamstring curls, your butt kicks, whatever it is you want to do, that's just accessory work that we do on top of it once we have finished completing those bigger lifts. One thing that I do want to point out, girls, is don't trust everything that you see on Instagram and social media with these Insta famous girls. I know it looks like they are having a lot of fun doing their training and they're doing these weird wacky workouts that look really different. You know what, go for it if you want to do it at the end of your workout and have fun, but at the end of the day, let me tell you, that is not the type of training that they are doing in the gym. I have been on many courses where I've met a lot of these Insta famous girls that are very well known, and I can guarantee you that is not how they train. They are in the gym lifting a hell of a lot of weight. They are very strong girls, and these little butt kicks aren't getting them the results that they have and then tell you that you will get through doing that on Instagram. It grinds my gears seeing this. So I just wanted to do this video also to shed a bit of light on that, because I know that there are a lot of impressionable girls out there that see these girls on social media, particularly on Instagram, and what they are portraying is not real life, and it's definitely not how they got the results that they are showing you. For me, I think the goal each week should be to progressively get stronger. Each week you should be somehow overloading your training, whether it be with increasing the weights that you are lifting, whether you're increasing the reps that you are able to do, whether you are working at a different tempo with your weight training. But if you are doing the same thing for months on end, then you know, it's not going to get you the results that you are aspiring to achieve, and it's not going to do you any favors, unfortunately. So every 4 to 6 weeks, you want to be changing your program slightly, because our body, it's referred to as adaptation, but our body does adapt to what we're doing. So we want to change the stimulus every 4 to 6 weeks in order to keep the body progressing and moving forwards. Now, another question that I have been asked is it better to go heavier and less reps, or is it better to go higher reps and less weight, which is an awesome question. To be honest with you though, and it's probably not the answer that most girls are going to want to hear, you need to have a mix of both. Your main rep range should generally be between 6 and 12, maybe 15, but when it comes to true strength training, you don't really want to go much more than that. Now, I'm just going to read some other questions that I have received. So what are the best strength training exercises to assist with fat loss? We've answered that. What sort of weights should we be doing to make the biggest impact? Again, that's our compound lifts that we just talked about. This is a good one. If training consistently, when should you generally start to see results? Awesome question. It honestly comes down to the individual. Every person's body is going to be a little bit different. Everybody's day-to-day life is a little bit different. So stress also, you know, affects our body composition to an extent as well. There's a lot of external influences that may have an effect. However, at the end of the day, if you are in a calorie deficit, if you are being consistent with your training, if you are drinking adequate amounts of water, 2 to 3 liters a day, if you're recovering well and you're getting adequate sleep, like 7 to 8 hours minimum every night, I would say you would start to see results around 4 to 8 weeks is when I think that the individual will start to see results themselves. But however, I think it's around 12 weeks that generally other people will start to notice someone's results. But when I say this, it comes down to consistency, and it's really hard to kind of work this out with clients sometimes, because what a client thinks that they are doing well isn't necessarily an accurate representation of what is actually happening. So, you know, they might have had a biscuit here and there, or they might have had a wine here and there. All those little things add up, and I know it doesn't seem like much, but at the end of the day, if you are in a calorie surplus, you're gonna either maintain or put on body fat. So sometimes it's these little things, like for example, one Tim Tam biscuit is worth 110 calories. So, you know, if you have one biscuit a day and that throws you into a calorie surplus, that one biscuit is going to unfortunately not allow you to achieve your goal, particularly for that week, because you're already going to be over your calories for that day by 110 calories. If you did that every day for the week, think about it, you add that up, that's 770 extra calories you are consuming. So, as I said, if someone is doing 100% everything correctly, I would say before other people start to notice, it would be around that 12-week mark. Unfortunately, for most people, there is no real quick fix unless, you know, you have a lot of weight to lose. Now, another question is, what about cardio? What happens if you only focus on strength? Will this be effective? As I said, cardio is a tool that we play. We manage our body fat percentage through nutrition. Our strength training is literally, you know, working with the canvas, just getting our body into the correct shape, helping to burn that energy so that we are in a calorie deficit. It's not actually going to, as I said, not one thing is going to give you those results. It all works hand in hand. And cardio is a tool that is played, or a tool that is used in a card that is played. It's not one or the other. And does lifting heavy as a girl make you look manly/masculine? I really don't man arms. No, as I've said before, absolutely not. I think we've covered that pretty well, and no, you're not going to look like a man and you're not going to have man arms, contrary to popular belief. So this one's a really awesome question as well. Harriet, I have a couple of questions around strength training. One, will it make you look like a weightlifter? Absolutely not. I think we've covered that again. And number two, this is a really good one. What do you do if you have a muscle injury/strain from doing too much strength training? Can you modify your strength training, or is it better to stop doing strength training? Awesome question. So first and foremost, you shouldn't really be getting an injury or a strain injury from weights if your form is correct. So first and foremost, we want to make sure that you are executing those movements correctly. Regarding, or depending on what exercise that is, I would just make sure that you check in with your trainer, or you know, you're just more aware of how you're executing those movements, because if a movement is done correctly, generally you shouldn't have a strain or an injury. But you know, things happen. It doesn't take much. Like, you can turn the wrong way sometimes in your sleep and you can crave injury. So what I would do in this case, and as many of my clients have known, I've recently had a fractured wrist and I've had to work around that myself. And I will probably do another video on that, on how to work around an injury with your training so it doesn't affect your training regime. But basically what I would do is I would avoid that area and work on your other body parts. The thing with an injury is, guys, it's one area of your body. You have so many other areas of your body. If you aren't training because you have an injury, like, for the most part, depending on what that injury is, it's kind of just an excuse. You have so many other areas that you can work around, and there's always something that you can still do. So for me, with my fractured wrist, for example, I didn't do any heavy lifts where I had to hold weight because I physically couldn't hold the weight. I didn't do any upper body exercises for 4 weeks because I physically couldn't move my wrist. I'm still wearing a brace, which I've taken off for this video just because it looked terrible. But it had a metal splint in it, so I couldn't bend my wrist. So for me, I personally just left my upper body training off limits for a little bit, I was still doing my legs, so I was doing a lot of pin loaded machines where I wasn't having to load weight plates, or I was doing things like the leg press where, you know, I could load a weight plate with one hand and still get that resistance training in, but you can work around it. I also took the opportunity to improve my cardio fitness and was doing sprint training, cardio, plyometrics, and from a resistance perspective, I was doing my pin loaded machine, walking lunges, hack squat, leg press, weighted hip raises. The only things that I really couldn't do with my legs were just heavy deadlifts and squats. So you can always work around an injury. You've just got to know, you know, where your limits kind of lie. But good question. Now this is a really good message I got from one of my clients with some really good questions in here. So we've already addressed the question in regards to rep ranges and whether or not it's better to do low reps, high weight, or lightweight, high reps. But a really good question I did receive is to how to feel your body in a time-effective manner before weight training to retain muscle, particularly for a vegetarian or vegan. Cooking an omelette at work ain't gonna happen. Yes, I 100% agree with that. Cooking at work is definitely not going to happen, but try and eat something about an hour before training. Something that's generally protein-based would be ideal, but you don't have to cook at work. Just be prepared, plan your meals at home, take them to work with you. My biggest concern for most people is just making sure that they have eaten about an hour before training so that their blood sugar doesn't drop and they've got enough energy to perform their workouts. I'm in a similar situation. I can't cook at work either, and I work very strange hours. So at the end of the day, it all comes down to just being prepared. So another really good question that I got asked is, can you spot reduce an area that you are unhappy with? And unfortunately, for the most part, no, you can't spot reduce body fat. At the end of the day, it all comes down to a calorie deficit. You need to be losing weight in order to be able to see the muscle underneath the areas. However, in saying that, there is a lot of research that indicates that we do hold body fat in particular areas if certain hormones and whatnot are out of balance. So you can definitely address things from an internal perspective, but in regards to your training, it's an overall result that you're after, not just one particular area. Yes, once you drop body fat and you're happy with your body composition for the most part, you can definitely do exercises to accentuate these areas of focus, but for the most part, no, body fat is not a targeted approach, unfortunately. It all comes down to a calorie deficit. Now, one of the other questions and last questions that I received was, can you get the same results at home if you are someone that is intimidated by the gym? Look, it really depends on where you are with your health and fitness journey. For most people, I'm going to say no. The reason for that is with most home equipment, although it's fantastic and it's great for people who aren't in a position to get to gyms or you know, new mums and things like that where they can't leave a baby, it's awesome for it. It's definitely better than not doing anything. However, for general population, I'm going to say no, because you can't achieve the same progressive overload at home. For most people, if you have a gym at home, that may be different, but for most people, you won't be able to achieve that progressive overload in the same way that you can in a gym with all the weights that are available to you. So I hope this helps, you know, debunk some myths that are out there in regards to strength training and give you a bit more confidence in trusting the journey that is strength training. I know that it personally changed my perspective and my body composition for the better. I'm a trainer, I see it day in, day out. I even had one girl today who's lost over 60 centimeters from predominantly strength training and addressing her nutrition. So I'm a massive fan of strength training. I highly recommend it for every single person. I don't see why you wouldn't include that into your training regime. But if you aren't sure of what you should be doing, if you're intimidated in the gym, go and get yourself a trainer. Speak to a trainer and learn how to do things properly. The more educated you are and the more knowledgeable you are, the better decisions that you're going to make, and save the time, save time on, all the research and everything, and hire a trainer, whether it's, long term because you want someone to be accountable to or to motivate you. But at the very least, hire someone who knows what they're doing so they can actually show you how to execute these movements correctly, because that is what's going to get you results. I will leave it there. I hope this has helped you all, and I look forward to doing some more of these videos in the future in order to be able to better educate you around your training and your health and fitness journey. Alright everyone, have a lovely day, and I hope you enjoyed those fit tips with Vic.